This is Solside Up. I'm your host, Sol. Welcome to an hour of beautiful conversation. Open your heart and enjoy. And all right. Hi, everyone. This is Sol. And today I am so lucky to have beautiful Tara Aal with me from Los Angeles. Tara is an evolutionary astrologer, just like I am. And today we're going to have a little chat about the current cosmic mishaps that the gods are up to this coming month. And it's quite a month, Tara?
Yes, it definitely is. And I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you're so welcome. It's sort of soothing to know that we have somebody in Los Angeles right now talking to me who is sitting here in my very, very dark den of Norway. It is so dark here now that if you want light, you have to reach inside to find it. I don't know the last time I saw the sun, but it's getting pretty dark here. So how's life in Los Angeles?
Well, COVID is not good in Los Angeles, but the sunshine, but yeah. So we're on lockdown, at least for the most part, but it suits me fine. I'm a Cancer, so I do most of my work from home anyway. But we do have lots of sunshine, so that part's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing this when the first quarantine came in. I was kind of like wondering, I wonder what signs will do best. Well, it's a given when you know a little bit of astrology. It will do best in the quarantine, and I'm like, Cancer, they're gonna love it. They're gonna love it. And I have a Cancer daughter, and she's like, I'm kind of liking this tempo. She didn't. Yeah. Well, good to know. And Taurus as well would be good with quarantine, I think. Pisces, absolutely. Although they can probably have a tendency to fall completely out of reality if they spend too much time in quarantine. As an Aquarius, I must say, it wasn't all that bad either. I'm good with a little distance to things. All right, but we're in the middle of eclipse season, huh? So we have some interesting stuff going on in the sky as usual. There's always something. So what are your thoughts about the coming eclipse? That's a solar eclipse, the 14th of December.
Yeah, and it's a total eclipse, so it gives it extra oomph. And I'm looking at the chart right now, and for that new moon chart, Mercury is conjunct the new moon, and that little cluster in Sagittarius. And I know we were mentioning earlier that the galactic center is also tied into this piece as well. So and it's trine Mars. So it's an active, super active time. I was making some notes ahead of time, and I feel like, I didn't mention, it's also conjunct the South Node. So Mercury and South Node, we've got this like huge opportunity. I feel like, eclipses flash the lights off and on, right? So it's like, it gets dark for a second, so then you can see things you couldn't see before. And this has got so much mental energy, mental beliefs, mental constructs, mental ideas about what things mean, what things are, right? So if we want it, we could open up to a whole new view of reality, right? And so to me, that's a big part of the potential here.
I agree. And Neptune is also squaring the nodal axis, which is pointing to the North Node in Gemini, and now it will, it's taking on quite a momentum for the time being as the square is getting more exact. And Neptune is also finally going direct, which happened a little, late November. That was actually quite a relief. But that Mercury energy that is under the Neptunian influence is kind of confusing for a lot of people. I'm seeing, what to believe, who to believe, what is this anyway? For me, it feels like in this particular period where the Neptune square will be quite prominent to the nodal axis, that will all be in some weird Mercury retrograde bubble in a way, because it feels like a chronic Mercury retrograde. So where is my keys? I think I lost myself again in timelessness. It's easy to get pulled out. The galactic attractor is on 14 degrees Sagittarius. We're going to see that coming up very soon, actually. And then the great galactic center a little later in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is definitely a little bit out of the ordinary experiences in terms of falling out of time.
Well, yeah, and when you bring Neptune, especially, Neptune with that Mercury energy, it literally is like a trip, like you don't need
Mm.
drugs to have that trip, like the doors of perception are wide open. The question is just whether we want it or not. Let's look at everything in life, right? It's like it's all available, and in this case, it's really available. There's
It's
something about this too. I know I don't always look up Sabian symbols, but this time I just felt like we should look up the new moon Sabian symbol. And there's something about that trine to Mars, because, Mars in Aries brings in this element of, looking out for ourselves as well, right? Like being who we are authentically. To me, Mars in Aries is very much like I can be individually who I am and express who I am. And so when I looked at the Sabian symbol, and this particular new moon is going to be 23 degrees Sagittarius, 8 minutes, which means we're reading 24 degrees in the Sabian symbol. The symbol is a bluebird perched on the gate of a cottage. And this is the keynote in Dane Rudhyar's book. The reward, which meets every effort at integration into a social environment for those who remain true to their own selves.
Ooh, we're really
So,
like
yeah,
authenticity.
yeah, at the same time. So I feel like there's, certainly Sagittarius is, a sign that is above the horizon. It is about integrating and synthesizing different things. And, but at the same time, we have this trine to Mars, which reminds us that you have to remain true to yourself as well. So both of those signs together, it's almost like there's a coming into more truth personally and more truth collectively. Now,
it is we have even more confrontation coming up.
Yeah.
It's time to
Yeah.
take that person in the mirror is like,
Yeah.
what are you making up here? What's the expectations? What are your attachments to ideals? Are these ideals actually working in your life? Is it an ideal that is worth actually questioning? People have a lot of funny ideals. And I'm, during this COVID, the one thing that's been going on in my head, like a mantra over and over again, is the Krishnamurti mantra. It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And what we see, a virus, is a symbol of something that is penetrating your personal space, and it's challenging the organism from within. So it's kind of inviting the organism to break itself down. So it's a systematic collapse in a way. And perfect immunity has been a lot on my mind lately. What is that anyway? Because there's something with Neptune, once you have an idea how to neutralize certain illusions, a lot of the expectations that cause a lot of imbalances and stress and unnecessary chaos in the system are just being released from the system. And you're like, oh, it's raining, I'm fine. Actually, I am fine. It's like, I'm done with a lot of my struggle with life, because we seem to kind of struggle a little bit. But I think the Sagittarius energy here, being able to kind of come into yourself, as you mentioned with that Sabian symbol, being authentic, coming into yourself, listening inwards, can eliminate a lot of that external it's temptations, the triggers, the wishes to go out and save the world instead of redeeming yourself from within.
Well, and it's interesting you bring up the whole virus thing and the immunity, because I've been thinking about that a lot too in some different contexts. And one is that when we align with the Neptune part of ourselves, we will align with the part that can't be violated. It can't be harmed. So and I recognize that in our physicality things can happen to us. So I'm not negating that part at all. But we're evolutionary astrologers, and we talk about from the soul or the essence standpoint, that can't be harmed or violated, right? That can't be just taken over. And so aligning with that part of ourselves more, then that becomes more the reality that we live. See, when we choose to see life as doing something to us, right? Or things coming at us or people coming at us, we affirm that truth, we make it real, and
Yeah.
so, and I've been just been sitting with that a lot, that even with myself, of all the ways and times I do those kinds of things. For me, I've been going through a huge period of mental reprogramming, but we're all doing that with the South Node in Sagittarius, North Node in Gemini, right? We're all trying to figure out, what this is going on up here.
Yeah, this is the biggest retreat humanity has been on since Second World War, probably, like being forced to confront ourselves in many ways and forced to look at some of the things that actually weakens us from within.
Yes.
Now, I often hear, and, it's not that I'm above it either. Like I'm constantly working on myself in order to also not fall into the temptation of getting lost in that maze of collective consciousness and feelings where we are like pointing fingers. And what I often hear is that very often you can hear that sometimes with people, they're like, why does always all the bad things happen to me? That's a very interesting kind of way of speaking to yourself, I think. And that kind of self-talk, of course, we don't want to confront it, because I think subconsciously we want some sympathy that life is hard and life is not so easy. It's not always that you manage to do a perfect job with yourself and just like, oh, look at me, I'm so free. It takes effort and work, and you just have to keep your eyes on the path. But sometimes when we confront people with this, like, and just gently say, oh, how about changing the script? What if you didn't say that? What if you didn't say, I hate winter? What if you embraced winter, right? And that, no, I want to hate winter. Oh, well, then, of course, go ahead then.
Yeah, but then if that's the case, then you're getting exactly what you want. This is the part that none of us, and I don't like to own it all the time either.
No.
We are getting exactly what we want. Like, we are literally creating our lives. So if something's happening, a part of you wants it. Now, this doesn't mean that, like, I'm saying that, we're all wishing for like terrible things to happen to us, but on some level, we like to prove that we're right. And so if in our heads we say, oh, life is always dealing me a bad deck or whatever, we love to prove ourselves right. And then we can all we see is the bad deck. Yeah. So literally, if you and you don't even have to switch to say, oh, life's giving me a wonderful deck. You can just chill out for a while and say, I actually don't know what life is giving me, and give it a chance to show you. To me, that's so much what it's about. Like, we don't give anything a chance just to show up how it really is. We've already got a story about it. I already know who you are. Then I don't hear or feel anything that you really share with me. So that's why I feel like one of the cool things about a North Node in Gemini is like what's supposed to be happening with all of us, and what is happening, whether or not we're consciously doing it, is there's more room to like ask questions and to actually not know. See, because South Node in Sagittarius,
the time of being bombastic is efficiently over. None of us knows nothing, like, it could be like this, but on the other hand, it could be like that. We don't know.
But that's the start. To me, that's the huge promise. When when you're in a space of not knowing, that's when you can actually really discover the truth, Otherwise, you're in your own way all the time, which I'm saying this from personal experience, not as like a talking at anybody. I know, because I do it all day long like everybody else.
Well, the work is the work. Now, there is something very interesting about this new moon, actually, and it's the fact that both Venus and Saturn and Jupiter are all on the 29th degree. So there's like a culmination point happening here that relates back to especially for Saturn, because we're talking now about mastery, walking the path of growing up. It's showing us that, okay, we have this big, huge collective karma that we are all experiencing at once. It's COVID. It's a collective karma. I mean, we can't really say it's something me and you did, like, it's your fault, you did it. No, it's a collective karma situation. And I think, we're just in it together. But Saturn is showing us, along with Jupiter and Pluto, that you can do, this is your responsibility now, this is your patch of life, you have responsibility for these things, right? But that's not on you, that's not yours, that's a projection, maybe somebody else's responsibility, so you could easily let go of that without fretting. Anything Capricorn has to do with doing the right thing, and we're prepping like crazy to understand what does that mean, because it's like a mutable new moon means letting go of a lot of stuff. We're just preparing for a new season, and we're preparing for the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction with the solstice. It's like the god themselves wanted us to have quite the ending of a 2020 that was the longest year in history.
Gosh. Do you think, I don't know if you practice this way, but like for me, like the full moon is the in breath, right? It's the in breath of the universe. So we breathe in, and when we breathe in, we experience the height of our individual selves, kind of that the fullness of what we are. But the new moon is the exhale, right? It's the breathing out of the universe, and it's when we let go to make space, which is why it's that fertile ground of like brand new beginning. So in some ways, this is like just this, if we could all have this huge exhale, and let some of this go, there would be so much space. And clearly the universe knows we need space, because I feel like all this stuff, just like you were saying, is lined up. All that 29 degrees means the turning point, right? Like literally, and so do you want to enter the next era still filled with all the stuff that holds you back, or do you want to make room? And so we can each of us do what we do as individuals, that's what does everything for the collective, right? So I think during this time too, I don't know, sometimes people worry like, well, what can I actually do, right? Or people look at making a difference on some big scale. And I'm a firm believer that you do just little things in your own life. You just change your own perspective a little bit, and you shift it for everybody. It doesn't take huge monumental things. It takes a bunch of us willing to do, like you were saying, to step up and do it. Capricorn, right? So would you say Capricorn is a feminine sign? It's a yin sign, and we don't think about that a lot. Capricorn's about responding to life, right? It's like it's happening. And I say responding instead of reacting, right? It's like consciously thinking, how can I respond to this situation in the best way?
And that would be quite the opposite of Mars in Aries, just reacting to things.
Totally.
Oh, I reacted to that quite quickly, didn't I? Was that a smart thing to do? Well, let's see. You can have an idea that something that sounds smart, and then afterwards, oops, it wasn't so much. It's like, oops, I did it again, kind of thinking. But absolutely, it is a feminine sign, and it is a sign of actually caring. It's about, and I think we see now, that we are inherently skeptical of our societies and our governments, because we don't know if they are a corporation or a government. We don't know if they have the best interest of the people, or if they are. The skepticism is at max now in terms of really being able to trust the governments and redefine what it means. What isn't government? It's like a mother to its people, and it's supposed to take care of its people. And with this vaccine now coming in very strongly now, we're going to hear about vaccines for a couple of months now, and all kinds of fears coming up in people that it is not a good idea to get vaccinated. And of course, people are scared because of this inherent skeptical feeling that, I don't know, there is something, like people feel betrayed by their governments, like the people who were supposed to take care of them, that we pay taxes to, etc., are not distributing the wealth in a healthy way, right? So I think that's also going to follow us into 2021, and which I kind of consider beginning with that new, with the solstice there, the Saturn. It's like, what a beautiful orchestration of planetary juice, like, wow, who came up with this? Great job. I'm inspired. It's like, so if we can only have faith enough to just let go of all the ideals that are not serving us, what do you expect for this Saturn-Jupiter conjunction?
Well, I mean, I think we're already feeling it now. So I
Mhm.
just think, clearly, clearly we already feel the energy. I think that there's huge potential, but I think in the space of that potential, there is going to be more conflict. I don't think that there's any way that there can't be.
Mhm.
I was, and certainly personally, where that great conjunction is in your own birth chart kind of can show you the area of life where that highlights. So, everyone can check that for themselves, but just collectively, it's like we have to find this balance between change and moving forward, but still valuing, what is worthy from the past. I always think of Saturn and Jupiter together is like, you don't want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. At the same time, you don't want to cling to the past. And when you put those two energies together, what people tend to do, because we all do, is we tend to polarize, right? We tend to feel like we either have to do one or the other.
Mm.
And this is really about doing both. In the sign of Aquarius, I mean, we know that Aquarius has, a co-ruler with Saturn and Uranus. My neighbor's dog just started barking. He must be excited about the great conjunction.
Picking up on the energies. Like
Yeah.
some people have fun over there. I want to get over there.
That dog is definitely the Saturn side of Aquarius for sure.
Oh, really?
But it's not, yeah. But what I was thinking here is that we have a tendency to think about Uranus as being the more innovative, creative energy. I feel like Saturn is equally creative, just differently. And so when I think about the Saturn side of this equation, it's how can we change within the structure? How can we shore things up? How can we actually reshape what we're working with? And when we look at the Uranus side of it, it of course is getting out of the container, getting out of the structure, blowing it up or shattering it. But we need both. There are times where we need to totally shatter the thing and start over. And there's other times where we need to do the work within the structure. And so I see there being definitely times where we're individually faced with either change being kind of feeling like it's forced upon us, or sometimes we will be the change that's being forced on someone else. There's those two sides of it. So, and we may not even recognize it until the moment's happening. You may not realize how what you say or what you do is challenging someone else to do something different. But I think we're all going to find, whether it's in our personal lives or professional lives or whatever, personal, even inside, areas where we're really confronted with, we can't keep going the way we have been. And the question is just going to be, are we going to just hunker down and cling on and refuse, as life happens around us? Or are we going to, find the agency to actually be willing to shift? And it's going to take patience, man, because this energy, this is hard for people, and it's very easy for people to get super riled up, to super hunker down. You and I talked about in another avenue recently about how, but there can be this, with this energy with Aquarius, can be super radical or radically non-radical, right? So we don't know which side is going to pop up, but what we know for sure is that things are changing, and that train has left the station.
Oh yeah. But I've been occasionally dabbling with free thinking. I love to roam and free think occasionally. And I started thinking about the last time Saturn Jupiter were in Aquarius. So we have to go pretty far back in time to get there. It's around 1200s. So it was the beginning of the end of the Dark Middle Ages. And in the Middle Ages, a lot of the esoteric knowledge weren't available for people, right? So it was the Renaissance that, these new air cycles of Saturn, Jupiter heralded. They brought all these old ideas from Greek philosophy up into this, it made them surface again. So I've been thinking, okay, so it's like, oh, thankfully we're moving into a new Renaissance, because I'm done with this dark Middle Ages that this speculative news and tabloid politics and all kinds of strange phenomena we have to deal with in the advent of the internet, which is pretty young compared to the history of humanity. So, the depth and the richness of the Renaissance mind, it's that kind of thing. Will we be able to, what does the Renaissance version 2.0 look like? because that's what I think we're going into. It's not happening overnight. For no. It's the thing with like with Saturn, Uranus is 2 steps forward, and then we get a little scared because it's moving too quickly. Like we love revolution as a theory, but when it comes as an actual fact, it's like, oh God, it's quite destructive, isn't it? It has a price, and the price is the structures that we built our lives on. I want to keep my house. I guess you want to keep your house too. I want to keep my privileges, of course. I want to, we all do want to have good lives, but in a fairer world, I guess we have to distribute the wealth more fairly, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I guess, I agree with you. We are not going backwards. We're definitely going forwards. And on a personal level, this particular Jupiter Saturn, and we talked a little bit about that before we began here, it's that what is authority anyway? Because it is a leadership energy, like then the sun will be in Capricorn, Mercury will be there, Saturn Jupiter is over there in Aquarius. It's kind of, it's marking the beginning of the end of 2020. Actually, I would put the new year there, right? It's just like that will be the theme for the next year, actually, because of the Saturn-Uranus square that we're going to talk about a little later. And on a personal level, it's almost like a coronation. We normally we associate Jupiter, Saturn with the king and the queen, of course, if we want to be really fair about it. And for me, that's important because I think we often look to the outside for our solutions, or like we want somebody to fix something for us, because the way we've been brought up is to become dependent. If you have a problem, you go to the doctor. If you doctor, you got to figure out what's wrong with me, because the governments have told us to do so. Outsource. We know better than you. A king and a queen has a crown on their heads. And you don't have to tell them what's right and wrong, because they know themselves when they're doing something that's off the natural laws. So I think there's a good chance now, up until that moment, a lot of people will actually have gotten to the place where they're started to forgive the past, because we've been doing all this ancestral healing since Pluto entered Capricorn. And it's time to do that now. It's time to, Dave Chappelle said something beautiful. He said, I think what societies need now is more redemption. Like, we need to have redemptive talks. We can't do this blaming thing no more. And he should know. He should know. He's one of my absolute heroes, because he said that. Like, oh God, of course. Like, we need to understand that there's a time for everything. Yes, it's a time to be angry, and then there's a time to forgive. And that is something we know inside ourselves. Forcing people to forgive is never a good idea. No, I tried. You have to forgive, or ask for forgiveness. I think a lot of people carry a lot of guilt and shame inside for things they didn't and shouldn't feel shame and guilt for. Like, they think they did something wrong because they weren't doing it right. So a lot of this coronation is about, you may be not able to love yourself entirely. That takes training, man. But you can at least try to tolerate yourself. Be more redemptive. Turn the other cheek, also to yourself. It's going to make the journey much more pleasant, I think, in the future for people. So yeah, that's the end of Venus in Scorpio over there, She's been trotting into the depths of our self-worth, right? So these are my thoughts about it. What do you think about, because right after this conjunction, we're going to jump into rebel land, that's what I call Saturn-Uranus square. We're going to get it smack dab in the middle of our stuff, like you're Cancer and I'm Aquarius, and we're both born with Uranus in Libra.
Yes.
And you are a Uranus Sun square, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, and this square will be in Earth signs, which means like, like feeling it in the body, feeling it in the Earth itself, feeling it in our physicality and our material world. You know, I'll always feel like if it's not solid, man, if it can't hold,
Mm.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's got to go.
Mm,
And that's not just, you know, I'm not just talking about a house on its foundation, but that's also true with, like, you know, our
mm,
thinking, you know, the way that, you know, our relationships, the way we do everything, right?
mm,
So for me, the liberation is exciting, but oftentimes at the time it's happening, you know, it doesn't feel like it. It's like in the tarot, it feels like the Tower card or something, you know, like it's all tumbling down.
Tower. Mm,
But, you know, I mean, I guess maybe as the older I get, I don't want to like pretend that something's working.
mm,
I want to know
mm,
that it's not, so I can grow. So
mm,
to me, Uranus ultimately is about authenticity and liberation. You know, it's about setting ourselves free.
mm. Yeah.
So, and then the thing about Saturn is, so if you can kind of get out of the stuff that has become outworn or has become confining, or that has become too many shoulds, too many have tos, you know,
Mm,
because they say I do, because the rule is this, because that, then we
mm,
actually have room to work with Saturn in a new way. That to me is where this gets super exciting. I
yeah.
feel like, you know, I don't know, this is maybe I just like Saturn is, for me, we put Saturn in a little box, like everything we know about Saturn and our experience with Saturn. I think the Saturn in us and the Saturn in life has way more to show us. And I
Mm,
think that Saturn
mm,
square Uranus is actually liberating that energy, meaning so we can have a new relationship with this thing we call Saturn,
mm. Oh, yeah. Oh,
which
yeah.
is about building our future, you know? I mean, it's all about mastery and it's about integrity, but also there's a sensuality to Saturn. You know, there's a way to like build life in a way that we can enjoy it. Saturn is not just a taskmaster. You
Mm.
know?
Well, you know, I'm a big fan of Saturn. I often, you know, I've just seen in my personal life that Saturn transits that I've had have been extremely fertile. It's like, geez,
Yeah,
wow, this is exactly what I needed to have. Like, and it has been benevolent.
me
Now,
too.
yeah. So you look back before the Zeus. You know, we want to go back before Jupiter took over the reign, right? Which is like, I love Jupiter, love him. He can be a little excessive occasionally and have some hubris. I get it, you know, and eat too much sugar, and but before that, Kronos actually, you know, ruled the world, and that was in the Golden Age. And he was such a benevolent ruler, according to some myths, if I got this right. And he gave out all these boons, you know, the gifts.
Oh,
And it's not very strange that you have Christmas coming up with in Capricorn, actually, right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, here's your gift. And then this whole thing that Santa says, like, if you've been a good girl or a good boy, you know, I guess we just need to redefine what that means, because that's where our illusions are quite prominent. It's like, what does it mean to be a good boy or a good girl? What does it mean? What is correct alignment? Because I see so many people having guilt for stuff they haven't, you know, the conditioned stuff. And I think if we can just clean Saturn. We talk a little bit about that in EA, right? We talk about the distortion of the archetypes. You know, how Virgo got distorted from being a very sensual earth sign into becoming this nun versus, you know, this really prude, this very purist kind of energy. It's like, that's just distortion over 2000 years of Christianity, yeah? And an
Mm-hmm.
idealism of that women are not supposed to make sound if they have sex.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do not enjoy it. You're a woman. You're not supposed to enjoy it. You know,
Oh
so
my gosh.
silly. But it's so silly. It's like, instead of going back to the times before we had all that very unnatural shame, and of course the self-discipline that is invited, that Saturn invites us to, is to not do things in excess, because it's not healthy for the system. You can't party all day, you know, 7 days a week. You won't be able to do other stuff, you know. So it's about priority.
Plus
That,
Saturn too, you know, it's like well, one, Saturn always wants to strengthen you, which is a
mm,
comforting thing to me. Like, man, I've been spending a year with my Saturn Sun opposition, which has been manifested a lot of things, but
mm,
physically it's been hard. Like physically, literally, it's been like I've never felt older, like just physically, like my body, which is Saturn. Work-wise, it's brought all these opportunities, and I've been working really hard. But Saturn wants to strengthen. So whenever we see a Saturn transit coming, no matter what it is, it's about helping to give ourselves more strength and stability. And also when you were talking about like, we just can't party all the time. I mean, I suppose people can, but Saturn wants us to have some satisfaction, right? That's the part of us that wants to feel good, that we've done the things that matter to us. So Saturn too, part of this is that getting down to like Stephen Forrest would say, what is the great work of yours? And that great work can be anything. It doesn't have to be, building an empire. I mean, it can be growing a garden.
Or being a mother.
Yes,
or a father,
exactly.
right? It's just.
Or practicing astrology, if that's your thing.
Yeah. It's easy, very often.
But that's the thing with Saturn. I mean, and this idea of satisfaction is Saturn is that energy where at the end of the day, you feel good because you're doing you, and you're doing it the way that you're meant to do it. And you are setting aside the time and the resources to do the things that matter, So to me, Saturn can sometimes be about getting really serious about having fun. Like, we just think it's not always getting serious about being serious. It's like, what do you need to take seriously?
Yes, exactly.
Some of us need to seriously lighten up. That's also like
you seriously need to go on a party.
Yeah. Right. So
you need to dance, man. Have fun, break free, let loose. It's not, and then again, back to the Jida Krishnamurti, it's not a measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. The ideals of what it means to be successful aren't always what does it mean to be successful for each individual? It's actually an individual thing, It's actually, and that's where the authority comes in, when you know with yourself that what you are doing is the right thing to do, right? Yep. And with yourself, you're not a perfect creature, a perfect creation, not yet. You're working towards learning how to master the tendencies, for instance, to give up, the tendency to not believe in yourself, you want to master that voice in your head, needing understanding. Saturn is sometimes the understanding that, listen, this thing is not going away just because you make an effort. Maybe you need to go in deeper and have some actual work done on some deeper subconscious issues. Take that seriously, take yourself seriously. It's your life, right? So I think I'm a big fan because Saturn is the initiator. It's initiating you into a higher, as you said with your Saturn opposition, you had initiation this year then. It's like, Tara, you are now ready for the next level. It's going to be hard. So I hope you're prepared to leave a little bit of that Cancerian tendency to just lay on the sofa and I want to go in my tempo, Cancer says, and then Saturn comes in and says, but no, I know you can go a little faster. And she's like, okay, I guess I can. I hope you rewarded yourself well during this time. You deserve it. It's wonderful. Huh? So it's bringing out karma for good and bad, huh?
Yeah.
Which is
and at the same time with also, right after the new moon eclipse, the day after, Chiron in Aries goes direct, and you were talking about healing ourselves and stepping up for ourselves, and so we've got all this energy literally at the same time. I mean, be your own king and queen, be your own healer, right? Be your own medicine, be your own champion, because when you do that for you, it naturally carries over to everybody else. What you do for you is how you really, that is the medicine, right? If I can't do it for me, number one, I really don't have much business telling it to anybody else. There's lots of times sometimes when I'm in if I'm with a client or something, there'll be times where I'll add a little caveat. I'll say, I'm going to share something now, but I want to be clear that I haven't mastered this myself. I've just learned this somewhere. Yeah, because I feel like there's a difference between sharing from a place of example.
Integrity.
And so when we think about this, the Saturn energy, whether it's the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction or whether it's Saturn with your square Uranus, integrity, man, is on the table all the way across the board.
Yeah.
And that does, and to me, integrity is not like a necessarily like a right, wrong, good, bad at all, but it's like, are you in alignment? You mentioned alignment earlier.
Mm,
Is your, is your mind, heart, and actions all in alignment? Like,
mm,
do you speak from a place where that's all true, or are you actually thinking something, doing something differently? Are
mm,
you just going this way even though you don't feel like it's right? So
mm.
this idea of all of us needing to like come into individual alignment, I feel like is a big part of it too.
Yeah, and there you mention it, because what you mention is that sometimes we can't. Sometimes we don't have that integrity because we lack the experience, or because we failed ourselves figuring out how to crack that code. And that is also breaking with the ideals of society, you see, because society told us that we're supposed to know everything and be perfect all the time. So when you show up sometimes in people and they ask you, how do you feel? You say, I'm doing okay, because that's the appropriate answer to survive in a social jungle. So I think showing up a little bit more vulnerable is actually, saying as you did for your client is like, I don't actually have any experience with it, but from what I hear, this could be a very good thing to do. It's a very nice, that's the humility of Saturn. When that comes in, it brings in the higher energies of Saturn. It's not a harsh energy necessarily. That's the conditioned way we've been brought up. Everybody just says to kids, very often, not everybody, I'm sorry to be generalizing, but a lot of it happens occasionally. So, but very often when people when we got brought up, the focus is, and I see that I have kids too, it's so easy to focus on the things that they don't do, like they don't clean up or they don't throw, like, why, but there's a garbage bin like 2 meters over there, why didn't you just put it in the garbage bin? Now, being conscious of this, because we've very often been raised with becoming aware of our flaws and mistakes all the time. I think it might be a good idea to make people super conscious of all the things that they're not good at, but it's, if you look at the full picture, I think it's a smarter idea to actually inspire them to understand that they are inherently extremely beautiful and loved, and that then they become self-regulating, and they would want even more to show me, being the parent, that they are capable of handling their own lives. So I think we've been brought up with focus on all the things that we didn't do. We never given trust. And you see that from the governments as well, being the greater parent, that, no, we don't trust you to make your own decisions. Yeah, you can't think. We can, on the other hand. We're a panel of experts over here. It's like, huh? Yeah. I don't know, man. So that Saturn integrity is very much being able to listen inwards and sitting with your imperfections as part of being human. And that's the territory of Chiron, being
Yes.
human.
Yeah.
That never gets old for me, because being an Aquarius and having a on earth experience, as we sometimes make fun about, being human has been such an important part of my own healing journey. Like just showing up and not having to be invincible, or not having to be superwoman, superman, or whatever, robot, or whatever. So I think a more redemptive society will make it easier for us to also forgive those we cast out of our societies, because we do that quite frequently, actually, creating splits. And Aquarius is a lot about groups, and Saturn is a planet of synthesis, harmonizing paradoxes. Yeah. So I think a lot of this group situation we see, with group, I mean like the science people and then the religious people over here. And then you have like that's what I mean with groups, different group souls.
Oh, and the more that you're talking about how I don't know, you said kicking people out, but that's we do that to ourselves.
Yeah,
we say, oh no, this part can't have a place. Whatever, you go to the bad room or whatever, or you go to the basement where no one ever hears from you again. So that redemption starts with, to me, as like a homecoming in ourselves, right? Like we don't have to like everything, but to allow it. The more we push something away, as we all know this, the more we do that, the more shadow we create. So part of what's happening right now is we're seeing that shadow it's being illuminated for us to see it more and more. But I just feel like the more that we, and also about the groups, to totally agree with you on with that being the groups, but also that Aquarian Uranian energy is not about duality at all. It's the convergence of opposites, right? I mean, it's all about shades. It's not about this or that. And so when we can start to see things that way, more through that lens, like when we have room. And then also, this is also looking at life outside as though it's all part of us inside. I love the idea of thinking that everything happening to me, like you are right now, a part of my birth chart, right? That's how that's how this.
Exactly.
And so when we look at everything in life, is like, this is how I think about it. Oh, here's my birth chart, which I know pretty well by now. And no matter what's happening, I know that it's somewhere in my birth chart. It's not something other than me. And so part of this energy too, I think, is about coming back to realizing that it is all us. If you accept it's all you, it's easier to accept everything in general, but it starts with, to me, accepting the little parts of me. And there's lots of parts of ourselves that we don't like, and we don't like it personally, or we've been told that it's not good or it's not right, and we have stories about it. But I know from my own experience that even what I've thought those parts of me are, that's not, we don't even know what they are, because we've shoved them in a corner and made them some weird distortion, right? If we start to welcome it back, start to actually give space to see what it really is, some of the things that you thought sometimes were maybe your biggest deficits or your biggest weaknesses, or the things that you didn't want to share, become actually your assets, because they actually get a voice. They actually get to come forward and be what they are. Can you imagine if you as a person were kept in one tiny little room forever in a basement? Can you imagine how you might be? So that's how those little parts all do, and that's how life responds when we do that to it.
Definitely. And I think it seems like this year being a year that brought up a lot of anger in people, evidently. Like it was a real trigger to anger. And we astrologers, we of course explain that as Mars being to a suffering degree retrograde in Aries, like it's like in its own sign, it's like, just add a little bit more spice to that cocktail, please, as if it wasn't intense enough to begin with.
Gonna hurt on the other end for sure.
No, but it's fine to be angry. I know, like we have that rage phase of any kind of healing phase that everybody has to go through. And I think, we are scared of anger. We find angry people scary, of course, but it's all about, when we come to Chiron in Aries, it's all about these trauma responses that we have. It's fight, flight, or freeze. It's either or. I don't know where on the scale you are, but we are all in that part. Like I'm more of a freeze kind of person. I don't fight back. Like you will very rarely see me fist first. I'm more like, okay, say nothing and just disappear. But I think a lot of people now, we are just traumatized by it's like culmination of so many things, because of this Saturn-Jupiter cycle is actually balsamic, and it's been for quite a while, and it's culminating all these things. Saturn is finally done with its little journey through Capricorn, and those themes are also culminating, and it feels like the world is at a place where we need faith now more than ever, like a new vision or a new faith, or like understanding that we can actually work together, and we must, if we want to keep this ship sailing through space in a sustainable way, And I don't know, that's where the higher aspects of Aquarius is coming in as well, as soon as Saturn understands the concept of compassion, it might be actually doable for us to have an actual cooperation and see if we can do something, because Uranus in Taurus is very much about the health of Earth itself. It's Gaia, it's the body, as you mentioned earlier, like and healing through your own body. And I think a lot of people now are learning as well that maybe I should take a little better care of my body, like I need to be better fit to face the future, because it might not be the last pandemic we are going through, as Earthlings are taking up more and more space on this planet. And we are facing a serious overpopulation problem that we haven't dared talking about because we can't just get rid of people. It's not the way it works.
No, but we can get smarter. We can get smarter, and we can work together better. And with Aquarius, like you were saying, that new era is a new lens. You know, if we're willing to see, like, it gives us a new perspective. Like, that's one of the best things about Aquarius. Like, you get to a new space and a new angle, whatever, and you see the possibility that you couldn't see before. So that part's exciting, and I look forward to that part. I know there will be difficult things, and I know we won't always get along, but to me, and yeah, you're right, I do have Sun square Uranus, so I like the energy anyway, but to me it feels like there's freedom coming in a different way than we've experienced, at least those of us who are our age. And I'm excited to see what that's actually like. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Massive. First, it's just a physical thing happening, like we're about to enter space. We have all these, there's some China landed some stuff on the moon, and you have Elon Musk running around throwing shit into space. And, we're seriously considering inhabiting, other places. So that might be a hope for humanity, that we are not sucking this planet dry, that it's okay to expand, right? That expansion is actually what we're supposed to do. But right now it's getting a little tight down here, and the resources. So that will be the crisis, I think. Although I'm no expert, of course, I've been wondering about that Uranus in Taurus, especially when it comes to farming and food and that kind of thing.
There's even earthquakes. It's anything that needs to, anything that has too much tension. It's like,
I just need to get it out. Yeah. Well, I guess we won't endure more of our, we can't suppress the blockages no more, right?
No.
Yeah, exactly. It's like breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. So it's a lot with air. So it has a lot to do with our breathing. And ironically, everybody's running around with masks. But it's okay, because then they become conscious of the importance of breathing, right?
Brings you back. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. What if that's part of it? What if part of that's to bring us back to breath that is literally consciousness itself? Wouldn't that be fitting with Aquarius?
It's a very cunning plan, in which case.
Nice, Sol. That was great.
Well, we're going to have also during 2021 3 Mercury retrogrades in air signs.
Yep.
So it's a lot about air. It's a lot about social communication. Actually, it's quite an interesting year because the tone is shifting completely in many ways. So yeah, I think we're in for a little bit of a shift, and it's welcomed. So Tara, tell me about your upcoming things. Are there anything you can share with people listening that they should know about your work, where to find you, etc.?
Oh, thank you. Well, you can find me at my website is taraal.com, TARAAAL.com, lots of A's.
Yeah,
and,
yay, lots of A's.
Yeah, I've and I've got a book. I got a book with a co-author, Ashwin Subramanian, coming out next year called Astrology by Moonlight. And so that will be on the front. I'm speaking at NORWAC.
Oh, nice.
May. Are you as well?
Nope, but I'm coming to ISAR.
Oh, nice. So I'll be there. And yeah, but if you want to connect with me, through my website is great. And I've got a number of things next year. I think I'm going to start up a little astrology sort of study group just for anybody who wants to do it. No recording, nothing formal, just like a bunch of astrology geeks hanging out. So if that's something that interests you, get a hold of me.
The Saturnian, the group work.
Yeah.
The group work, yeah. Well, I'm inspired and enthusiastic now for the upcoming new moon. It was great chatting with you, Tara. Thank you very much for taking the time to see me. I know you're very busy, so I am extremely grateful for that, for bringing your light all the way through here to Norway, pit dark Norway.
Thank you. I always enjoy my time with you, so it's great to be here.
Yeah. So because we actually meet up quite frequently over at the EA Zoom group, and I think there will be more happenings during. I think
we're going to be doing it every month together next year. So.
Ooh, interesting. So then we'll see more of each other. Yeah. So thank you very much, Tara.
Yeah, thank you.